Just north of Four Corners, according to the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, that is the area that should be evacuating. Also, a 1 mile radius to the northeast and west of the area, as emergency crews try to get this under control. We know from a hospital representative that at least one person had serious blast injuries when they were brought to Essentia Health St. Mary's Medical Center in Duluth. At least 4 other people had non-life-threatening injuries. There may have been others treated on the scene. Those people have not been accounted for, and authorities are clearly very busy handling this. You can see how that cloud of smoke continues to grow over the Husky Oil Refinery. As that cloud continues to grow, they're asking people to please evacuate the area due to the heavy smoke. So that area of evacuation is 10 miles south of the refinery, 1 mile north, east, and west. Please stay with us for updates about safety concerns. Follow the Douglas County Sheriff's Office and other police departments if you have social media accounts. But as soon as we get these updates, we are bringing them to you. This is live footage of the Husky Oil Refinery on the eastern end of Superior. Obviously, roads around that immediate area are blocked off as authorities continue to attempt to contain this fire, but it is massive. You can see that massive cloud of smoke, which is why they're asking you, please leave the area. If you live 10 miles south of the refinery, please evacuate 1 mile north, east, and west. They also need you to evacuate. You can see there are still active flames on the site there, which means that heavy smoke is not going to go away anytime soon. So please continue to evacuate. I have an updated injury count here. There are now apparently 15 injuries. There are now apparently 15 injuries from the after effects of this Husky Oil Refinery explosion and fire. There are 15 injuries, 5 patients at St. Mary's Medical Center in Duluth. One of those 5 at St. Mary's has a serious blast injury. The other people were brought in by EMS. They had non-life-threatening injuries that are being treated. We don't know if they will be admitted to the hospital or not. Of course, the one with the serious blast injury will be admitted, but 15 injuries. St. Mary's Hospital in Superior also treated 5 patients. 4 of them were brought in by their own private vehicles. 1 was brought in by emergency medical services. So we are awaiting more information from hospital and medical officials, but the new injury count related to this Husky Oil Refinery fire is 15 injuries. We also now have a public evacuation in place. So please evacuate if you are 10 miles south of the refinery and 1 mile north, east, and west. So this continues to be an active situation. We continue to get new information and new numbers as authorities are trying to respond to this. But we have crews on the scene trying to gather as much information as they can too. But what's important to know right now is that authorities are asking people to evacuate at this point. Evacuate, please, if you are 10 miles south of the refinery and 1 mile north, east, and west. Husky Energy, which owns the refinery there, bought it from Calumet last year. They say that all workers are accounted for at this time, but we now know that 15 people were injured. There were 15 injuries treated at various hospitals around the Twin Ports. 1 person with a serious blast injury, that person treated at St. Mary's Hospital in Duluth. 4 people also brought there with non-life-threatening injuries, and 5 people treated at St. Mary's Hospital in Superior. All that information is coming from Essentia Health St. Mary's officials for you as this scene continues to be very active as authorities continue to try to push information out and make sure that people are safe. The heavy smoke that you're seeing billowing from there, that's the reason for the evacuation. They're monitoring air quality, and due to all of that heavy smoke and the fact that there are still active flames, means that they would like people to evacuate from their homes and businesses. An evacuation now, an update on the evacuation. It has been extended now for the northeast and west to 3 miles around. So please still, if you are 10 miles to the south, evacuate. Now, if you are within 3 miles to the north, east, and west of the refinery, now they are asking you to evacuate. So that area has been expanded. 3 miles around the Husky Oil Refinery to the north, east, and west, and 10 miles to the south. You can see that the smoke is all going toward the south, but they are also asking the radius 3 miles to the northeast and west to also please evacuate and stay safe due to the heavy smoke. So that is the latest evacuation update. You can see there from our tower cam how massive this pillar cloud of smoke is as it goes up into the air and moves around the region, which is prompting the evacuation around the Husky Oil Refinery. 3 miles to the north, east, and west of the refinery, 10 miles to the south. Please leave the area. You can see from our crew on the ground here that there are still emergency vehicles blocking off the road. Of course,
Michelle,
there are two ambulances now
for those that are just joining us now, if you can kind of recap
some other vehicles
how the situation has progressed throughout the afternoon. Because when we first started reporting live with you, this was a scene that was under control, and very quickly we've had these evacuations. We can see behind you that smoke billowing. Can you kind of recap what you have witnessed and how this situation has progressed this afternoon?
Well, as you mentioned, it did seem to be under control a little bit before noon today. There was white smoke coming out, but that was even clearing. And I was asking the people at the barricade where I was, a lot closer to where this plant is, what was going on, why crews weren't coming towards us, why roadblocks weren't getting cleared. And then suddenly I started seeing a lot of black smoke. It just seemed to appear and multiply. And then they were telling me to move back. As I was moving back, I saw some flames shooting into the air. I heard several booms, at least 5 or 6, and it just seemed to happen like this, one after the other. It just a lot of booms going on. I saw some flames shoot into the air, and of course they kept moving me farther and farther back, just like all of these people leaving right now. We are out towards the residential part of this neighborhood, and it's at least a mile away from where this plant is, and people are still being told to get out and make their way safely to a different part of Superior.
Michelle, you talked about a few minutes ago, you could hear those subsequent explosions at a pretty rapid pace. It's been about maybe 20 minutes since we spoke with you last. Are you still hearing explosions of any kind? I know you're a ways away from the plant now.
I haven't heard any subsequent explosions since the last ones that I mentioned, but I have seen the smoke multiply. It just seems to be getting worse. Fortunately, I'm not hearing any more of those explosions, and those explosions I did hear didn't appear to be as bad as the ones that were originally reported to me. I heard from neighbors who were probably this far out that those original explosions really shook their homes and they saw smoke everywhere, and fortunately that's not what we're seeing right now. But as I said, there were subsequent explosions. There were several of them, one after the other. So that can't possibly be a great situation for what's going on in the plant right now, and there is plenty of smoke. It just seems to keep billowing out.
All right, Michelle, thank you. We're going to let you get back to your reporting there. We'll check back in with you in just a few minutes. Now we want to head over to Adam Clark for an update on the wind speeds. Obviously, the wind not helping anything this afternoon.
And what we're going to talk about is just, how far away is 1 mile? I mean, do you really know that? So we're going to define that right here. So here's where the fire is, Husky Energy Refinery fire. And as we take a wider look at everything, and you can see northwest winds kicking in, and what they just issued, it's 1 mile to the east, 1 mile to the west, and 1 mile up to the north, but 10 miles down to the south. Well, there's not a lot just to the south of this fire, so that's good news, but a point of where that ends is Patterson Park Golf Course. So that's what we've kind of looked at. Now, closer into Superior, I would say around 35 and Franklin Square. That's each side. We've got 1 mile on each side there. So that if you live in that region, you need to evacuate. That would be the best cause. You don't want to inhale any of this smoke. And this is the imagery that we're getting off of the Doppler radar. You can see some really high returns where the fire is. That little yellow dot tells me there's a lot of air rising there, and a lot of particulate that's being picked up by the Doppler radar as everything's pushing down to the south and east over towards Hawthorne. What I'll do here really quickly is try to highlight some towns that are underneath this. Is Oakland School is in around this area, and let's see, the Taconite Yard, we've got that going there, and let's see here, Middle River Sanatorium. So those places are underneath this plume of smoke. Oh my goodness, the radar just picked up on a higher return, as you can see with that indication of a nice big red dot right there on the Doppler radar. So everything moving from the north down to the south and east, and the winds are gusting pretty heavily. We've got a cold front that's moving through the region as we speak. So it's right around here. It'll continue down to the south and east. We've had gusts in the last 12 hours.
Parking lot down. All righty, Mariner Mall parking lot. That's where you go, 307.
They need to really be careful. I mean, this is something that all of these emergency responders have been trained to do. So they are trying to protect us as best they can, and you know, updating evacuation statuses. And you know, if you're worried about it, I mean, just stay out of the area. I mean, everyone's going to be worried, but you know, they give you these miles, you know, 10 miles, 2 miles, 3 miles. I mean, you do just need to be, you know, on your toes. And if you just want to leave the area, it's probably a good idea. Just get out of the way. I'm sure a lot of people are responding. And so now we have Dan Romano, who is standing by to provide us another update.
Yeah, that's right, Renee. I'm at the corner of 24th Avenue East and East 8th Street in Superior. We're just to the, or closer to the refinery. They are forcing, or they are providing mandatory evacuations. Actually, police officers are going door to door to make sure people are out of the houses and pushing everybody towards U.S. Highway 2 as we speak right now. It is a very chaotic scene a bit, but it's organized chaos. People are moving out of that part of town towards U.S. Highway 2 and then evacuating elsewhere. But it is
Refinery,
some
10
multiple
miles south.
staging scenes to make sure that police are forcing everybody out of town and nobody can get back in to that side of the, or towards the refinery right now. We are being told to get pushed back a little bit harder, so we're going to provide another update here shortly. But until then, yeah, a little chaotic scene here in Superior where they are creating, or they are forcing evacuations from that side of town towards U.S. Highway 2. Back to you.
So again, that was Dan Romano reporting, and it's a very fluid situation. You know, emergency crews are, I'm sure, still arriving and trying to figure out how to battle this fire, which is of course just raging and causing that really intimidating and scary looking cloud of smoke over Superior. You know, a while ago, let's see here, it was about 12:30, so about 45 minutes ago, you know, Husky did respond to the incident, saying, you know, they were monitoring the air quality. Regulatory authorities have been notified, but again, things have definitely changed since you know, 3 hours ago when this first started, and it was very serious then. You know, an explosion and people, you know, maybe 1,000 people evacuating the refinery because they were working on a shutdown and getting ready to do all these repairs. I mean, that was bad enough, and then things have definitely progressed. And now, again, schools in the area, some schools are being evacuated. The police department is coordinating and trying to get more information out about that. The buses will be going to Amsoil, so at Susquehanna. So parents out there, just be ready. I'm sure your schools will send out alerts. You know, thankfully, because of technology, you guys are staying connected with us with this live, with this special report and on social media. I'm sure parents are aware right now. Now, when I was in the neighborhoods on the East End earlier today, before the evacuation notice was out and before things had gotten worse, you know, people were telling me that, you know, this kind of thing is kind of always in the back of their mind. I mean, it's a big employer in town, an important part of our economy, but you know, because of people they know who work there, or they just know the industry, that something bad could happen, and so they have worried about this in the past. But a man who's worked there for more than two decades says he's never seen anything, of course, as bad as this. Even before the big fire got worse, he said that even the explosion and the smaller fire, he had never seen anything that bad. But of course, refineries you know, there are lots of potential, but they all know what to do when that happens. So they are, you know, going to their evacuations. They're leaving the building. They're going to the predetermined emergency site and waiting for officials to release them or tell them what's going on. So now we're going to go to Taylor Holt, who is still live at the scene.
Yeah, you can see flames still very visible. It seems like it's still growing, and we're actually here with the Superior Police Chief, Nicholas Alexander, and you have an important message to get out to people.
I do. I want to let people know that the City of Superior is implementing an evacuation 10 miles south of the refinery, so pretty much all of the south end of Superior and some areas to the east of that, and then 2 miles north of this refinery. We are currently evacuating the schools that fall in that perimeter. It's important for families and parents to know that their kids are going to be sent to the AMSOIL Center on Susquehanna Avenue in the back rear parking lots. AMSOIL is helping us with their emergency operations people there to create an area to help reunite families with their children. Right now there isn't an immediate threat or health concern to the kids, but we want to err on the side of caution and get people out of the areas that could potentially be affected by this fire, by the smoke that it's generating, and so on.
Yeah, and no timeline on how long it will last, the evacuation.
I'm not a firefighter or knowledgeable in these areas, but I'm told that this fire likely will burn until the fuel is consumed, and that could be a couple days.
Yeah. Do you know how they're fighting it? I heard that water isn't doing much. Do you know that at all?
I don't know. Right now I would question, looking at the smoke, if it's actually even being, if any attempts to suppress it are going on right now.
Okay, well, thanks so much for joining us. And important message there, of course. As he said, the evacuations will be in place until it's safe to return. So we will, of course, have that information on our website. And still a very active scene. Smoke still burning a lot here. We will send any more information we get from city officials to you as we get it. There have been several officials on scene. The Superior Mayor is actually on scene here with the Superior Police Chief. We spoke with Senator Janet Bewley, who was on scene earlier today too. So just a lot of chaos, but an important message to follow those evacuations 10 miles north of the refinery, and then I believe 3 miles west, or 10 miles, excuse me, south of the refinery, and 3 miles northeast and west of the refinery should be evacuated. Like the police chief said, just important to follow those evacuations in place, and we'll send it back to you in the studio right now.
All right, thank you for that report from the scene and the update from the chief, who said, again, out of an abundance of caution,
475, you want to call dispatch?
they are evacuating students from schools in the area, and those kids will be bused to the AMSOIL area on Susquehanna in Superior, in the back parking lot area. So parents, I'm sure you're getting alerts, and I'm sure you're a little concerned, but you know what? They are going to take care of those kids and bring them to safety. And again, if you are in the vicinity of the refinery, some of the folks I spoke to earlier who didn't think they would have to leave have probably already left. Dan Romano reported just a few minutes ago that police were going door to door in the East End and getting people, making sure they were leaving. This is very serious. The smoke is, as you can clearly see, looks very terrible, and they're asking people to evacuate, abide by the evacuation orders 10 miles south of the refinery, and up to 3 miles within the vicinity in general. We did get a little an update from UWS. It looked like they were not at that time evacuating, but this is a very fluid situation. Looks like we just got an update from Essentia Health, which says they called in extra physicians and staff and notified the burn unit, ICU, and they've set up a decontamination area if needed, and they've also set up a family assistance center because they, of course, are working with the patients. And they say at this time they are caring for 10 patients from the incident, 5 who are at Essentia Health St. Mary's in Duluth, 1 with a serious blast injury and 4 with non-life-threatening injuries. And then they have 5 patients over in Superior at their St. Mary's Hospital. They're all with non-life-threatening injuries. St. Luke's confirmed earlier they have 1 patient. No other details are available at this time from Essentia, but they are all prepared and ready to care for patients. You know, they also train for a situation like this, and you can see the different fire rigs that have showed up. I'm sure everybody within a certain mile radius has offered and come in to help, because that fire is going to be very tricky to handle. It's not like a house fire. I mean, obviously oil, you never throw water on a kitchen fire, right? That's what the fire departments always teach you. And so now we've got oil to an even bigger, you know, magnified, plus they've got all kinds of other chemicals and different materials that they use at a refinery. And you can see the smoke is still kind of billowing up now, seeming more like in a, almost like a shelf area. So our thoughts are really with all of those firefighters who are on the scene and trying to figure this out, and all the other first responders. We're trying to manage a site where it had, you know, 1,000 people working there on a preparing for a shutdown and for a big repair at the refinery, which many still know as either Calumet or Murphy Oil. Actually, just if you've been in the area for a long time, a lot of residents in the East End still call it Murphy Oil. But yes, we're really, it's a mass response to this big, massive fire. I mean, you've got the fire, police, schools, Douglas County, you've got the neighboring agencies offering help. We saw the Superior Public Works. You know, it's kind of it's nice to see everyone working so well together, because, I mean, this is something that really needs an all hands on deck. And even when we were out there earlier, there were contractors sitting on the side of the road waiting to be told where to go and what to do, and making sure they were all accounted for. Enbridge Energy folks came out with bottles of water. So they either went out and purchased some water or had some at the office and said, hey, we know what's going on out there. We want to help. And so it's really an all hands on deck situation that no one wants, but at least they're prepared for and are working on it. Again, they're evacuating kids from the Superior School District to Susquehanna at the Amsoil Center in the back parking area. If you've been there, that's where like the K-9 units have done their big family demonstrations. And again, if you are near the refinery, you are asked to evacuate. Police are going door to door in some of those areas telling you have to leave 10 miles south and within like a 3-mile radius everywhere else. So just stay away from the scene. You know, it could be through the night, it could be longer, it could be days, according to officials, on how long this fire burns, because you can't just throw, you know, 100 hoses on it and hope that it goes out. Again, they were preparing for a shutdown, and that's when the explosion happened. Crews inside told us it was like a sonic boom, super loud. They knew something bad was happening. They all got out. Some of them, people who are injured, have, you know, non-life-threatening injuries, which is good. There was one person with serious injuries. And now we've got an update from the Superior School District. The Voice Alert to Parents now says the schools are allowing parents to pick up their kids at their school. Some kids will be taken to Amsoil to be picked up there. So if you want to pick up your child at the school, that is okay. If you would like to pick them up at Amsoil off Susquehanna, that is okay as well. So again, there's going to be a lot of people going around trying to pick up their kids. So just drive carefully. Remember, you know, this is a very serious situation, but they are keeping your kids safe, and they're taking them away from the scene. And just drive carefully, and please don't panic here, where they're going to take the kids where they need to be safe. And again, you need to evacuate, though, if you're close to the area, because that smoke, how unforgiving is that? That is such black smoke, you know, blacker than most have ever seen, even at a house fire, which is pretty alarming. And so it looks like the fire is still causing a lot of that because of all the chemicals and all the things that are at a refinery. The smoke is different even than just a regular house fire, and it just continues to look very ominous. It looks like there's some equipment there, and you know, people all over the region are seeing this plume, and they are worried, but they've got crews from all over coming in to help manage this emergency response. We just got an update from WITC that they are closed for the remainder of the day. Because of this fire, all classes and events have been canceled. So WITC Superior is closed for the remainder of the day. All scheduled classes and events have been canceled. And again, for the younger kids in the school district, you can pick them up at the school, or you can pick them up after bus to Amsoil, Susquehanna. So very, you know, a lot of updates. You know, we appreciate your patience as we're trying to provide everybody the most updated information, and the emergency responders are getting it to us as fast as they can. I want to say thank you to them for providing this. We know you're all watching this carefully. Let's see, it looks like, oh, look at that. There is, now we can see people. This is our Chopper 5, our partners from the Twin Cities, KSTP. You can see lines of cars as people have gotten in to their vehicle and are obeying the mandatory, or obeying the evacuation order. Again, 10 miles south of the refinery, and then within like a 3-mile radius around the rest of it. You know, people are taking this seriously. I mean, this is, you know, a major fire that they need to keep people away from all that smoke. You can only imagine what it would just smell like down there. It must just be very strong and that. So I'm going to read an update now.
They do not have any active warrants on that party, the one that
the police department again about the evacuations. Let's see, all people 10 miles south of the Superior Refinery, as we've been saying, 3 miles east and west. This encompasses the neighborhoods of South Superior, East End, Eloise, Itasca, and then south to Douglas County Highway B. So South Superior, East End, Eloise, Itasca, and south to Douglas County Highway B. The Great Lakes Elementary School, the Superior Middle School, Northern Lights Elementary are affected, and they are busing kids to Amsoil at 1011 Susquehanna Avenue. And you can pick up your children at the schools, but please drive carefully. The update now from the patient at St. Luke's. Their spokesperson says that they are in fair condition. This means vital signs are stable and the patient is conscious but may be uncomfortable. So again, the person taken to St. Luke's, and there is one person there, stable, fair condition, conscious, may be uncomfortable. And then Essential Health has called in extra staff to handle their patients, and they say they have 10, 5 in Duluth, 1 with a serious blast injury, 4 others with non-life-threatening injuries, and then 5 patients are over at Essential Health St. Mary's in Superior, all with non-life-threatening injuries. So everyone is ready to help and respond, and you know, we cover disaster drills as a news station, and I guess some of us, we always hope that we're never going to have to see something like this and see everybody doing all these things, but it is nice to hear that everything that seems to be working as planned. Again, this is some chopper video from KSTP, our sister station, and they are providing this for us. I mean, it's that smoke is just, you can't even, there are almost no words for what is happening right now in our region. And I know some people were around for the benzene spill and when there was, you know, the evacuations for that, and it was a different type of situation, but still evacuation, still very scary. I mean, people will probably compare that to when that happened. And of course, that was a different time, it was decades ago. So now we have, thankfully, a whole bunch of social media and things, electronics have just gotten so much better, so we can get the information out a lot faster. And so it definitely, you know, Bailey, it's just been a really, it's just kind of an emotional thing to look at, because you're worried about the people who are fighting that fire, you're worried about people who are leaving their homes. I mean, it's just kind of a scary situation, but hopefully they can get everything contained. And I don't know how you're, you know, watching it, what's going through your mind. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it is totally just shocking to see this video. And, you know, we had the smaller explosion this morning, which, of course, we almost didn't believe when we heard the reports. We were hoping that it was a training situation, a disaster drill, like you mentioned. But we thought, you know, we better send a crew there. And then immediately we started getting phone calls about the plume of smoke in the air. And now, you know, this is quadruple the size of that original plume of smoke. Of course, the original explosion was a terrible thing, was not a good thing. We now know 15 people were likely injured in that explosion, but they were evacuated before this bigger explosion happened. So, you know, at least it's good that not everyone who was on site this morning was still on site when this second explosion happened. I mean, if it's not bad enough just looking at these images and seeing the massive amount of smoke and flames and how this is affecting, hearing Superior Police Chief Nick Alexander say that it will likely burn until the oil is consumed, which could take days, you know, is even more surprising. And like you mentioned, obviously they can't just throw water on this fire. This is a whole different beast.
I'll be clear.
And of course, you know, Superior officials, they know the risk because this is in their community and has been in their community for years. It's sold to Husky just last year from Calumet. And like you reported this morning, Renee, there were 1,000 people potentially there working on scene this morning, as we're looking at Chopper 5 images here. And a lot of people that were on site that heard the boom and that luckily evacuated then, as now this situation has clearly just escalated even more to the point where it is affecting residents and people working, and now some of our schools in Superior as well, as those kids are being bused to Amsoil Arena, or excuse me, not Amsoil Arena, to Amsoil at 1101 Susquehanna in Superior for parents to go and retrieve them there. And 15 injuries reported. And Renee, I'll send it back to you.
You know, and earlier today when we were in the neighborhood and people were not leaving, they weren't under any type of evacuation, they think about this and they know it's a possibility, but man, I don't think they, right now their hearts are probably pounding. One of the women I talked to today, she said, yeah, my daughter at school got worried because she felt it, and she called home because she knew we lived so close, and so she wanted to make sure her mom and her brother were okay. And now we're going to go to Ryan Junty, who has an update about one of the patients involved.
304 transporting St. Mary's. 304 transporting.
Go to Ryan shortly, but again, as I was saying before, when we were out there and in the neighborhood before the second explosion and all of this fire really grew, and it was still calm out there, we were talking to some people who were like, you know what, everyone knows someone who works there, everyone knows, you know, how close it is to our neighborhood, and yeah, it's part of our lives. We try not to think that this ever could happen, and of course today it is happening. But a lot of people were able to get out, like Bailey was saying, because of the initial explosion, which has impacted, it sounds like, at least 11 patients who needed hospital care, and there could be more who were walking around and needed some medical care. But at least the good thing is that they were all, everyone was on alert and had left because of the first problem, and hopefully, you know, no one else has been impacted since then after the fire has grown. But again, you know, none of us have ever seen anything like this at the refinery. I remember we've reported on smaller incidents here and there, but nothing to this magnitude. And a gentleman who worked there for a long time said, you know what, never have I seen this bad. And his wife was so relieved to see that he was okay here. He was okay. Again, people have been calling, texting, checking in on Facebook and everything to let people know they are okay. So we've got another update. Let's see. Everyone located 10 miles south, again, of the refinery, 3 miles east and west, and then 1 mile all around are being asked to evacuate. The Yellow Jacket Union and Four Corners Elementary School are places you can go. So the Yellow Jacket Union at UWS and Four Corners Elementary School are the places, mustering points is what they're calling them, for all evacuees. Now, Four Corners, if you don't know, is located at 4465 East County Road B in the town of Superior. And the Yellow Jacket Union is on campus at UWS, Belknap, and Catlin. And please drive carefully. Again, there is some construction still in Superior, so please take your time and don't rush anywhere unnecessarily while all of our other responders are likely at the refinery. Again, Yellow Jacket Union and the Four Corners Elementary School are places you can go if you are being evacuated from your neighborhoods. At one point, police were going door to door to make sure people were leaving. Again, it's not the fire itself that is bad for the neighborhoods, although it's causing the smoke, which is the bad part. They don't want people to be impacted by all of that smoke, which does not look like is dissipating and is really thick and black. So again, please make sure you're following these evacuation updates. So again, if you had to leave and you don't know where to go, you can go to the Yellow Jacket Union. We've been in there before for stories. It's a nice place. There's places you can get some food. Four Corners Elementary School is also a place you can go, and kids are being picked up from school, and they're also being bused over to Ansel off Susquehanna. A lot of moving parts to keep people safe, and we just hope our fire crews down there are staying safe as well. A lot of things have happened since 10 o'clock this morning, and we really hope that nothing else gets worse. WITC is closed for the remainder of the day as well, so an update from that college in case you didn't hear that. All classes and events have been canceled. And again, this morning when it happened, of course, terrible news, but most of the people had been evacuated from the area. Contractors from all over the country are in town to do work on a shutdown and repair, because big industries like refineries do need a lot of maintenance, and you cannot always do that while you're running your plant. So this was a scheduled shutdown. A lot of people came in, and everyone has their specialties. So different groups from different parts of the country were coming in to work on certain things. And they all left. As soon as you hear that sound, which is like a sonic boom, which some people have been reported hearing from as far away as Solon Springs and Iron River. I mean, people heard it, felt it, and knew something was wrong. People in the neighborhood thought it was either their roof caving in or someone hitting their house. All bad things. But then they knew, because they live in the East End, they knew to look outside and check to see what was going on in the refinery, and unfortunately, it was an explosion and a fire there. A lot of moving parts, and hopefully people are just kind of calmly going to their evacuation zone or going where they need to go. Four Corners Elementary and the Yellow Jacket Union, and picking up their kids from school to get away from that smoke. And hopefully the fire officials down there are coming up with a plan. But again, as we've seen in other refineries, these fires can burn for days. And Chief Alexander from the Superior Police Department, he mentioned when he did an interview with Taylor Holt, who's still on the scene, that these can go for days. How you cannot just you just can't turn on the sprinkler system or put out a refinery fire quickly. It's just a really difficult and challenging process, but our crews have trained. They've had joint training sessions with the fire crews who work at the refinery, and then of course our Superior Fire Department as well. People understand what needs to be done. It's just a matter of doing it, and now the plume kind of looks like it's just changing shape. And I don't know if it's it didn't seem that windy when we were out there. Justin just came in the door, and is it very windy out or not so much? Because it doesn't seem like it seems like it's billowing up, and I'm just asking him off the cuff here, but it doesn't seem too windy.
What you can see with this
they're here and head down.
Is that the cloud plume is going pretty much vertical, which is good news.
If you notice anything about the cumulus clouds, these cumulus clouds usually form about 6,000 feet in the air. A mile is 5,280 feet. So you can see the base of the clouds really right up to the base of those cumulus clouds. And again, this thing is moving straight vertical, which is fairly decent. Now, it does have a slight tilt to it, as you can see back into the left of your screen. And, what we're dealing with that, of course, with the toxins coming in from some of the plume. And, of course, that's one thing you have to be aware of, is that, these winds are going to kind of stay the way that they are over the next few hours. Now, it does look like the winds will pick up a little bit in intensity within the next hour and a half. So this is when we're going to be looking at the potential for gusts up to 15 or up to 25, 30 miles per hour. That's some of the things that we're going to be watching very closely with this. Now, one thing that I want you to be is fairly interesting with this is that even our radar is picking up on this activity a little bit and seeing the smoke plume as it's moving to the south and east, and you can see it right there. That's the smoke plume pretty much south and east through some of the communities, as you can see there. And let me see if I can zoom in a little bit to kind of show you exactly some of the communities that we're dealing with. If we zoom in a little bit further, you can tell that it's like the Sunnyside area, some of the areas down towards South County Highway K, South County High Road, As you can see there with the smoke plume,
For 2 ALS,
just a little bit to the east of Highway Z is where you really start to see some of that activity really start to unfold, but it extends, you know, the higher end of it down toward South County Highway L and South County Highway B. So if you're living in direct vicinity of some of these, you know, you can see that it is tracking just to the south and east a little bit. And if we loop it, you can kind of tell in the last frame here, you know, when exactly, let's slow this down to the last hour so we can kind of get a better idea of that rather than the last 3 hours. So in the last hour, you can kind of see what it's been doing just southeast of the Superior area. Now, as I mentioned, the winds, they're out of the northwest right now. So again, that would make sense that it's moving more toward the south and east and the extent of how far it's going. It hasn't quite reached Highway 53. Once it gets, if the winds should shift, which it doesn't look like it will do that until later on this evening around the 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. time frame. But as I mentioned before, you know, it's fairly consistent wind from the surface up to about a mile high. The winds are about 10 to 20 miles per hour. So that's the good news, is you can see the extent of that plume rising roughly to about 6,000 feet, where that wind is really starting to take it a little bit before it tilts to the south and east. And, you know, one of the things that we also can see is that the wind speeds really, you know, all over are about 10 to 20 miles per hour. But again, we're really not looking at a significant increase in the winds until about a decrease in the winds, beg your pardon, until about 7 p.m. tonight. For the most part, we're going to continue to stay out of that northwesterly wind, 10 to 20 miles per hour, gusting up to 25. And again, as I mentioned before, in the next hour and a half, we should start to see these winds pick up a little bit as we hit the good part of the middle part of the day.
I got him now, thank you. A 5300 and 5309, no contact.
Oh, that's a new one. The one in Poplar is being handled by Gordon Westcott. Santor.
The channel.
Headquarters operations.
$52.46, $13.45.
Whoa! Holy shit! Fuck yeah, I'm videoing it. What the fuck?
Probably Oliver or the Village. Just trying to link up with some squads there doing some evacuation.
Whoa! Oh,
Except for
what the? Holy shit!
right in front of the post office, more information to come.
No fucking way! Oh shit! Oh shit! No, baby! No! Are we dangerous here? Yeah, we're dangerous. Oh my god! Oh dear! Are you filming? Yes, I'm filming!
I'm heading there right now, Ryan.
Oh! I think we are dangerous.
I'm not sure if there's a backup truck in Superior around, but not sure where that ended up with all this going on.
Let's go down! Let's
Yeah,
go!
copy us. I guess as soon as we get somebody over there to check.
Oh shit!
That's one custody, and we're close for it.
One in custody in code 4, 1346.
$29.18.
No,
29.
Kerwin 4215 East Kerwin, contact made. And what do you think about Daryl?
我操，没上新闻了。哇！我日，楼都在晃。去球啊！我靠，原子弹吗？这是。我操！楼上玻璃碎了，我操！哦，这冲击力太大了。
Saving Scott, call back.
楼别塌了，我靠！赶紧穿衣服。
Party would like a callback. Reference a letter he received about an old K at the holiday station on the Beltline. He believes he received a letter in error.
H5 St. Louis, I'm on scene. Q&W.
I'll check real quick.
2725, all crews. All of the traffic related to the fire, please go to Ops 1.
Holy.
I've got the Chief Deputy from Bayfield County inquiring, do we like any additional resources from their departments? Part of the there she said. 现在发吗？我上。
You can see the barrier set up right behind me right now.
I had no idea this.
But it is a very cautious scene here in Superior. I'm going to step aside. You could see the large plumes of smoke in the distance, and actually within the past, I'd say about 10 or 15 minutes, you could feel the mini explosions occurring in the distance, and as a result of those, or after those mini explosions, a change in color in the plume of smoke. So they've gone from more like a gray smoke to a thick black smoke in the distance, and that has happened again about 10 minutes ago. So we've seen a fluctuation in the smoke in the distance, but yeah, even the explosions that are occurring right now, it is a very chaotic scene here in Superior as officials continue to get people out from the east side of town towards US Highway 2. Now, we've heard unconfirmed reports that the radius of the evacuations have increased from 1 mile.
Accident with injury is 16th in Maryland.
Still working on that information right now, but those are unconfirmed reports. But again, the suggestion is if you are outside of that zone, it's probably best to leave. If you are inside that zone, it is not a suggestion. It is a mandatory evacuation. Again, we can't reiterate that enough. Now, a side point, I talked to my brother back home, and I know that sounds a bit odd. He's a boiler maker, a welder, and he's checking to see if some of his friends were potentially working at the Husky Refinery at the time, because that's his role. He tends to go to refineries right before they shut down to close everything up and then head out. So he is checking to see if he has any friends that were at the Husky Refinery at the time of the explosions. So, you know, again, this isn't just a Superior Twin Ports situation. This potentially is a national situation with all the people involved. Again, and my brother is out in New Jersey, so you could see the ripple effect of how it impacts so many people across the country. But here in Superior, again, we're going to reiterate that again.
Sorry, which unit?
Mandatory evacuations. Again, this is 24th Avenue East, 8th Street East, also known as Stenson Avenue. Get out. If you are south and west of this location, can't emphasize that enough. Get out. It is not a suggestion. It is a mandatory evacuation. Back to you, Renee.
All right, and then a couple more updates for you folks. I was just monitoring the Superior Police Department page, and they, of course, are handling a lot of different things with the fire department. And they say, please do not call 911 to verify if you're in the evacuation area. I mean, it's difficult for us, you know, people who are not really good at maps and directions, like myself. You know, it is kind of hard to picture 2 miles, 3 miles, 10 miles. But I guess if the advice from them is do not call 911 to verify. I mean, if you are concerned, just leave in an orderly fashion, and there are a couple places you can go, but do not call 911 to ask if you are in the evacuation zone. Also, the Superior YMCA is closed for the day. Again, the Superior YMCA is closed for the day. WITC is closed for the day. Several schools in the zone have been evacuated, and the kids are being taken to Amsoil off of Susquehanna, the opposite side of the city, which is good, and you can pick them up there. You can also pick them up at the school. This refinery situation started around 10 o'clock this morning. With an explosion and fire, and at one point the fire had been contained, and now things have progressed where it has spread, and there have been reports of more explosions happening, as Dan just said, and unfortunately it is now just kind of a raging fire, and hopefully our fire crews are staying safe down there. There were injuries. You know, at this point we know that 10 people are being treated by Essentia, both in Duluth and Superior, and 1 is being treated at St. Luke's. Now, earlier today, there were ambulances coming from, you know, many different areas. We saw the Iron River guys come up, and you could even feel it in Iron River, we heard. You could feel that explosion. And they sent their crew up, and other areas have sent their crews in, obviously, to help out. It is an all-hands-on-deck situation, and tons of updates keep coming in. So we are trying to do our best. I know the recommendation was to make a map. Well, we are just trying our best as the evacuation zones differ and change. We're trying our best to get it out there. So if you're just concerned, just leave it in an orderly fashion. Stay away from the smoke. And then that would be the best thing. Do not call 911 to ask. And now we're going to go to Amy Adamley, who is out there in the field as well.
I'm here down at Amsoil, where the students are evacuating to. All schools within a 5-mile radius have been evacuated to this site.
I guess
They've
use your
notified
judgment
parents
on which way
who
that
want
smoke
to
is
come
going.
and pick up their kids
Unless
here.
I hear
It
otherwise.
seems to be going in a very orderly fashion. They have signs for each school, so the kids are separated by school, and they want to encourage parents, sign your kids out so they can make sure that everyone is accounted for. They say right now they're working as much as they can with Superior Police Department to make sure this goes as smoothly as possible. Right now, a lot of kids are just waiting, and parents are starting to slowly show up and pick their kids up. But it seems to be going very well so far. So if you do have a student or a child in the Superior schools within the 5-mile radius of this, they are going to be evacuated here. Renee?
All right, thank you, Amy, for that. And one more thing I wanted to share from the Superior Police Department. They say they understand that this is a scary situation, and if you need to do anything, they will tell you what to do. So again, if you're in the evacuation areas, which have been changing a little bit with how many miles and et cetera, so just especially south, 10 miles, get out, and then 2 or 3 miles within the radius of the refinery, please leave. But they say, please, according to their post, which was half an hour ago, they say, please be mindful that at this time there are highly trained professionals executing a pre-planned action plan. And we know all the time that they're doing training. We hear it on the scanners, and we think, oh my gosh, is there something wrong? And then we check, and they say, we're doing a training. You know, all of these people are really ready to respond. It's not something they ever really want to do, of course, but they have a plan. The schools have a plan. As you just heard Amy say, everything is going well over there. They've got signs for which school the kids are from, so parents can pick them up. Again, it is a little bit scary, and it's nerve-wracking to look at that, but the officials who are or make it their life to keep us safe are doing everything they can to keep us safe. Even though it looks terrible, they can't do anything about that big plume of smoke. It's not like you can go up there and whisk it away, and unfortunately, the winds are going to pick up, according to Justin. But hopefully, later on tonight, they will have a better handle on how they can get this under control. And I think we're going to go to Bailey in the newsroom now for a little more background. She's been doing this special report since this morning, and we'll provide another update.
Yeah, well, Renee, Husky was in the news last year because they bought the Superior Oil Refinery from Calumet last year. There were about 180 employees there at the time. And Husky Energy, to give some background on the company itself, it's one of Canada's largest energy companies. It's headquartered in Calgary, Alberta, up in Canada, and they bought the Superior Refinery from Calumet. Their foundation is in heavy oil, but they also market crude oil, natural gas, asphalt, petroleum, coke, and sulfur. And then they distribute gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, asphalt, lubricants, and other ancillary products. So Husky, headquartered up in Calgary, Alberta, they did send a statement about an hour and a half ago or so and said that their emergency crews are also responding to the fire at the Superior Refinery. They told us then at about 12:40 this afternoon that all workers have been accounted for, and they said that the company's first priority is, of course, the safety of its people, the community, and the emergency responders, and they confirmed to us then that there were injuries, which we know. Essentia recently gave us an update that the patient numbers for them have not changed. They still had 10 patients treated, 5 at St. Mary's Medical Center in Duluth, 5 at the St. Mary's Hospital in Superior, 1 person with a serious blast injury. So, of course, we're hoping that injury count doesn't rise anymore, considering all of the flames and smoke as emergency crews continue to respond to this second fire here. The original one broke out at 10:06 this morning, just after 10 o'clock in the morning, and then after they had originally thought they had it contained, a second fire broke out, and obviously now has resulted in the scene that you're seeing here, fire across the refinery, thick black smoke, prompting that evacuation 10 miles to the south, 3 miles to the northeast and west of the facility. So, of course, please stay away from the area. Hopefully people have been staying away all morning since the original explosion occurred, but especially now that this has grown and that the evacuation is in place. So, Renee, I'll send it back to you for now.
And again, when it's almost, almost 2 o'clock here, and it's been almost 4 hours now when this all started, and the site was a lot different. You could see the black smoke, which was concerning, obviously, but oh, look, there's a map of the evacuation area. Look at that. So the red, the red is 10 miles south. The yellow is 2 miles. So again, like people like me aren't very good at directions and mileage, but if you're concerned, a lot of people are just leaving. Why is everyone laughing? I'm just telling the truth. Just leaving in an orderly fashion. Find somewhere safe to go. You can go to the Four Corners Elementary School. You can go to the Yellow Jacket Union at UWS, which is a very nice place. School's a nice place. I mean, just in a calm and orderly fashion, just get out of the zone if you're concerned. It's not the fire itself, of course. It's the smoke, which keeps billowing and looking terrible. But this is a map, and I'm not sure exactly who made it, but great job. I'm just not really good at reading maps, and I'm sorry. But the red, the south is what the concern is, and according to Justin, there will be, some of the winds picking up, and he showed us some of the areas where the wind might bring the smoke. People are posting continuously. I'm checking on Facebook. People are posting that, hey, their loved one who works there is safe. It was a really, really scary thing, and it still is because it just keeps getting worse. And so, yes, but hopefully the weather doesn't hinder too much. Justin, do you want to jump in again and say anything?
Well, yeah, the wind is going to eventually pick up a little bit here in the next hour. What we're going to be dealing with is winds kind of gusting up to 20, 30 miles per hour. But what you notice with this smoke plume, which is kind of working in the benefit of, anybody that might be a little bit downwind of this, is that it's kind of going nearly vertical. And you can see that if you extend it pretty much all the way up from the base all the way up to the clouds, you can see it's almost in a pretty vertical component. If we can go ahead and load Max 2, I can show this a little more, which we already did. So there we go. You can see that's pretty much in a vertical plume. Now, right at the base, about right at this level, as you can see, this here is typically where cumulus clouds form, and that's about 6,000 feet. So you can see it is extending a little bit further past that. But notice the extent of it really isn't causing too much issue a little bit further downwind of that. We are looking at pockets of some cooler air in this area right here and this area right here. So again, a lot of that heat is just rising straight up and then kind of hitting the winds in the higher levels of the atmosphere and then going to the south a little bit. Now you can kind of see this a little more in detail with the Doppler radar. Now, if I put this into motion, this here over the last hour or so, what you're going to notice is that that plume is still in a southeasterly trajectory, but more so with it is that it is now starting, parts of it are starting to impact Highway 53 just south between Solon Springs and Gordon. So you can see where that plume is actually at near County Road Highway M in between Solon Springs and 53. But again, you zoom out a little bit further and you can see that, you know, it does, even though it's a complete vertical motion, it's a very thin column as you move to your south and east. And some of the areas that are impacted by this, you know, just to the west of Hawthorne, but you notice South County Highway L, you know, we can label some of these roads for you. South County Highway K, where it merges with East County Highway B. The Sunnyside area, South Superior, the Ambridge areas, of course, that's where the majority of the heaviest smoke is right now. But you can see that the winds, you know, we showed this a little bit earlier, even in the last 15 minutes, have picked up about a mile or two in intensity. So we're still going to be looking at a 5 to 15 mile per hour wind for the most part, but it is going to eventually start gusting up to 20 and maybe even 25 miles per hour if it hasn't done so already. Now, over the last hour, now this is the what it looked like. We did a time lapse here, and you can kind of see it billowing here over the last hour, kind of getting fizzled out a little bit and then re-intensifying. But more, I'll play that back again. But what you're seeing with that, let me go ahead and move this over if I can do that. Anyway, what you're seeing with this thing is that it's continuing to really billow in a straight up and down fashion. There's not a significant surface wind that's really playing a role in making this kind of get out of hand, so to speak. So if we look at this once again, I'll rewind it. Here we go. You're seeing that it kind of just goes straight up and down and then really hits that vertical profile. And then once it gets sort of top of those clouds, just kind of moves in that general direction with the clouds once it hits about 6,000 feet. So that's about in the last hour. So again, downwind of that, we're already starting to see some of this impact the dirt plume or the smoke plume starting to impact as far south as Solon Springs, as we mentioned. Again, zooming in down there, and the very high end of that is right in between Solon Springs and Gordon. So you can see that it is traveled a ways so far, but it is straight south and east. And as I mentioned before, Renee, we are looking at these winds potentially picking up here in the next hour. But, you know, we saw with the time lapse there that, you know, it is moving in a fairly vertical direction. And once it hits where those clouds are, that's when it starts to move its progress toward the south and east, when we start to see the winds picking up a little bit as you get about 6,000 feet up in the sky.
Which is probably why they've changed some of the evacuation radiuses a few times on us. You know, 10 miles south for sure. You keep talking about the south. And, you know, that's important. You know, people really, that smoke cannot be healthy for you. I mean, it's, you know, general smoke that we're used to around a campfire or something. You shouldn't really bring that stuff in too much. But, I mean, this is a much different animal because we're at a refinery. That map that we showed you earlier is from the Douglas County Emergency Services. They have made a map, again, the radius 2 miles around the entire refinery, and then 10 miles for sure south. So again, a couple more updates. All Superior school events have been canceled for the day. So even if your school was not evacuated, all Superior school events and classes, after school events have been canceled. And then there's an update from UW Superior. They are asking, as a precautionary measure, to have students and employees in Ross, Hawks, and Westman Arena and the Service Center to convene in the Yellow Jacket Union until further notice.
Correction, 4496.
South end of campus, basically, according to our assistant news director who went to school there, and he knows I'm not good at the direction thing. But Ross Hawks, Westman Arena, and the Service Center go to the Yellow Jacket Union until further notice. Again, that is one of the mustering points or places that evacuees are being told they should go if they have nowhere else to go. The Yellow Jacket Union is a good place. At this time, UW Superior is still not in the evacuation zone, but they do, as a precautionary measure, want people to go from Ross, Hawks, Westman Arena, and the Service Center to go to the Yellow Jacket Union. Also, if you're out in the community and you're not really sure to go, if you've been evacuated from East End, you can go to the Four Corners Elementary School. And Amy Adamley was reporting earlier that the pickup at Amsoil off of Susquehanna for the kids from the schools that have been evacuated has been going orderly and calmly. You know, kids are waiting there for their parents to come get them after they were bused there, and then some parents, of course, were also going to the schools themselves. You know, it appears that the smoke is still billowing out. It could be hours, even days, for them to fully put out the fire. The Superior Fire Department, highly trained, and of course there's also a fire crew at Husky. I mean, oil refineries and big industries, they have their own fire teams because it's such an industry where you need to be safe 100% of the time, and so they need to have people on ready there at the scene, even though Superior could respond very quickly, and they did. Again, still the updates from the hospitals remain that speaking of hospitals, we're going to go to Ryan Genty, who's outside of St. Mary's in Duluth.
Right, Renee, we're learning now that the patient we previously reported on from St. Luke's is actually now in fair condition. Now, this means that the vital signs are stable and the patient is conscious but may be uncomfortable. And this is according to Melissa Berlaga, media marketing specialist from St. Luke's. So we are, again, continuing to monitor all the patients, but we will bring updates as they are. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Ryan. And at Essentia St. Mary's in Superior, there were 5 patients with non-life-threatening injuries, and then 5 patients at Essentia Health St. Mary's. Duluth, 1 with serious blast injuries, 4 with non-life-threatening. So our thoughts and prayers, of course, are with everyone who has been impacted by the incident at Husky, especially those who've been hurt and their families. Some people may not be from around the region because there's so many contractors who've come in to do work on the shutdown and work on the repairs. I mean, states that I've met people from today, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Illinois, because they're highly specialized teams who come in and work on these big projects. And so thankfully they were evacuated from the refinery after the first incident, which was the explosion and fire at 10 o'clock this morning, and then things have gotten progressively worse with more explosions and more fire. Unfortunately, at one time, when the photographer and I were leaving around noon, you know, there were neighbors in the area who were like, "Oh, I'm so glad that, you know, so-and-so is safe." And my husband was able to reach out to me. He's okay. And we're okay. We don't have to evacuate. One woman left work, Lindsay Jacobson from the Superior Business Improvement District. She's like, "Yeah, I mean, I talked to my husband, and they felt the boom, and you know, checked outside. Went, oh my gosh, you know, they know as a living out there that is a possibility things could go wrong." And so she came home just in case she had to evacuate the cat, and she's like, "Oh, well, you know, thankfully that's not a thing, but now it is a thing. People are being evacuated and being told to stay away from the area while they try to get this fire and this massive smoke under control." There is, you can see Chopper 5 right there. That was bringing us some aerial footage. We appreciate that. I mean, it's just kind of, it's almost surreal looking at what we are looking at. And a lot of you are posting and reflecting on what's happening on social media too. You're taking your own pictures, and unfortunately in none of those pictures does it look small. It looks huge and scary in all of them. But the Superior Fire Department is reminding all of us that, hey, you know what? We know this is scary, but we are trained, and we are going to tell you what you need to do to be safe. I mean, it looks scary, and it sounds, you know, it sounds like it could be scary if it's going to burn for a few days. But thankfully, you're personally not going to be in harm's way. It's just the smoke that's going to be a big problem. And so they're asking you, again, 10 miles south and 2 miles within around the entire refinery to leave. So do it in orderly fashion. Try not to panic. Again, it looks scary, but everyone's doing everything they can to keep the public safe. All of our fire officials, probably on both sides of the bridge, are doing what they can. Other departments have responded, bringing equipment and people and offering their assistance. Husky has notified all the regulatory agencies. All these protocols are in place for when this happens, because unfortunately we're not the first refinery fire. It's just the first time this is of this magnitude it's happened. But people know what to do when this happens. But it is still scary. Some of the people who are posting today, say, hey, so-and-so made it out safe, he's okay, or hey, we're leaving the city, we're going to Poplar, we're just moving out of the area, we just want to be away, which is a good thing. As long as you're not, whatever you need to do to make you feel safe and secure. Of course, our fire officials have to be right at ground zero, then they can't leave. But everyone else, leave in an orderly fashion, pick up your children in an orderly fashion. And then just try to keep updated with us on what we can do with those evacuation notices and what you need to do to stay safe. Our thoughts, of course, are with the 11 people who have been hurt. Earlier today, there was the medical examiner's car was making the rounds to see if there was anybody injured that he needed to go see, or it was just everyone was doing what they could, and it was a little unnerving, I think, for some people. But a lot of people who work there know this kind of thing could happen. So now we're going to go back to Dan Romano, who is out there, I believe, still in East End.
Are they taking you soon?
Yeah, that's right, Renee. It's a little bit of an unnerving scene here in Superior right now. Now, mandatory evacuations are underway just to the south end, to the west of where I am, at the corner of 24th Avenue East, 8th Street, also known as Stenson Avenue. And again, we have barriers set up right behind me. On the other side of those barriers, mandatory evacuations. Now, just within the past, I'd say between 5 and 10 minutes, we heard a first explosion, and then just a couple minutes ago, we heard a couple more explosions, and they actually sound like gunshots, more or less, well in the distance. But you can see the plume of smoke as I step aside here. It has expanded in size, not only up, down, but laterally as well, which indicates that the winds could be acting as more of a player with this plume of smoke as it's pushed down to the south and to the east. But yeah, it is a very, very quiet scene right now. Not nearly as many cars are being pushed out of here. A lot of the people have already left the scene. But if you did not get word yet, again, this is not a suggestion. It's a mandatory evacuation. And again, from what I understand, you have the evacuation map on your screen right there. So if you are inside that map, again, this is not a suggestion. It is a mandatory evacuation. Get out. I cannot emphasize that enough. Now, in the distance, we are hearing more sirens. We are hearing more emergency vehicles, more or less going through the area, combing through each door one by one to make sure that people are moving out of the scene. And actually, some of the houses or some of the neighbors in this area are coming up to us and asking, hey, should we move? And we've told them it's suggested. On the other side of the barrier, it's mandatory. So we are waiting to see if we are going to get pushed back furthermore. Still not sure quite as of yet, but this scene behind me in the distance, very, very active. Still hearing explosions go off within the last 5 to 10 minutes, as many as 3 explosions that we have felt here at the scene. And again, we are at 24th Avenue East 8th Street, which is also known as Stenson Avenue. And again, to the south and to the west of where I am standing right now, get out. It is a mandatory evacuation. It is not a suggestion. It is mandatory. Please leave the area. That's according to emergency officials and representatives here in Superior, and there are a number of them that have set up barricades all around the circumference of the evacuation zone to make sure that people leave the area and do not get back in. People have tried and they have been turned away. So if you are in the area, they ask you to please leave. Right now, as we take, again, I'm going to step off one more time. You can see there are a number of emergency vehicles not only here at this scene, it looked like there were a couple more in the distance, but they have since moved. They too are moving out of the evacuation scene. So again, a very, very eerily quiet scene right now here in Superior, but we've heard a few explosions from time to time, and I wouldn't be surprised as this fire continues that we hear a few more explosions as some of those tanks continue to light up. But it is a little bit of a scary scene here in Superior. We'll keep you updated as more information becomes available to us here in Superior. Again, on the east end of town at the corner of 24th Avenue East, 8th Street East, also known as Stenson Avenue. Back to you in the studio.
And we have an update from the Superior School District. All students now have been evacuated. All students in all of the schools have been evacuated. I know there have been some concern from parents, like, well, which schools exactly? So now we know everybody's been evacuated. So students are either on the bus or at the Amsoil Center on Susquehanna already. And our Amy Adamley was there earlier, and she's there now and was reporting earlier that, you know, pickup was going well. You know, obviously these are things that parents and families, we don't really plan for big emergencies like this, but the advice was, hey, go pick up your child at the school or go to Amsoil, and it was being done in an orderly fashion. And then again, some students and staff at UWS are being told to go to the Yellow Jacket Union, as are people who have been evacuated and do not know where to go. You can go to the Yellow Jacket Union. You know, there's bathrooms there, there's food there, and you can kind of just take a break if you just don't want to drive around or if you have nowhere else to go. Or you can go to the Four Corners Elementary, although that has been evacuated. It's still a spot that they were directing people. All Superior school events have been, now after school events have been canceled. And even if you're concerned or confused about exactly where the evacuation zone is, do not call 911. They need those lines open for other emergencies. You know, we are doing our best. Douglas County is doing their best. And everyone's doing their best to keep everyone apprised of where you need to go and who needs to go. Like, this is a map made by the Douglas County Emergency Services. The red square 10 miles south of the refinery, and the yellow circle 2-mile radius within the refinery, all around. So, you know, when in doubt, I guess my advice, and I think their advice, would be to leave. Just don't panic and race as fast as you can. But, you know, go somewhere where you feel safe. People are already saying, you know, hey, my house is open if you need a place to stay. I mean, this is the kind of community we live in. When this kind of disaster happens, people are going to say, hey, if you're in the evacuation zone, of course you can stay here. I don't know if anyone wants to stay at my house with 2 little kids, but anyway, it just, people are really reaching out and helping others. Like I mentioned earlier, at the scene when all the contractors are waiting out there, it's not terribly hot out, but the sun was coming down and they were probably getting thirsty, and so Enbridge Energy people, before they were likely evacuated, were handing out water. So I mean, people are banding together and offering their assistance, whatever it may be. And Justin, did you want to say anything else about now the wind conditions? Or,
you know, the wind conditions are just going to continue to fluctuate back and forth, and, you know, and we can see with the plume of smoke looking with our tower cam right now that it is kind of shifted more toward the southwest a little bit, but it's a slight shift. I mean, the overall plume of the smoke is more in a vertical direction, and you can kind of see that it goes southwest before it eventually shifts to the southeast as you move higher into the sky. All that represents is that closer to the surface, the winds have shifted more from the northeast to the southwest, which is why the initial contact of that plume of smoke is moving in that general direction.
Personal attention from the teacher with such large class sizes. How many students are in your classes? Anywhere from like 30 to 35-ish students, yeah, so that's a lot. And what's your sign say? My sign says, I get paid too much, said no Arizona teacher ever.
And would you guys like to be interviewed too? Thanks for talking with us. Is there anything else you wanted to mention about the strike?
I just think everyone needs to support it. Everyone needs to get out and vote in November because we need a change, and we're the ones who can bring the change. So yeah.
Sorry, and you said you're 17. Are you? registered to vote. I turn 18 in September, and I will be voting in November.
And do you think that's true of most 17-year-olds you know, that they're registered to vote and they'll be voting?
We had people at our school registering kids to vote, so hopefully they're going to get out there. We need to encourage them more because it's not something a 17-year-old normally thinks about. Like, I need to go and vote, go and register to vote, but it's so important, so it's something that needs to happen.
And do you think events like this are making people your age think more about things like that?
Definitely, definitely, and especially the fact that we're going to events like this and they're seeing their friends going and their teachers and people they know. So, yeah, I think that's really helping.
And I know unions aren't the most strong in Arizona, but a lot of this was organized on Facebook and social media. Is that where you learned about it?
I learned about it from my teachers, but also I spoke out at a board meeting, so I've been very involved with my district and with my school, so that's kind of how I heard about it with the people who I've been involved with.
What did you say at the board meeting?
Well, we have some issues at our school personally. We have issues with our district and with our school itself. So I spoke out with the way that our teachers have been treated because we had a new administration instituted in our school this year, and it's bad. That's all I can say. Our school has a hostile environment, and it's just not good.
How do they treat teachers?
All I can say is that teachers and even the students are living in an environment where they have to be fearful, and a lot of teachers are leaving this year because of the way they're being treated by our administrators. For example, not giving administrators a certain amount of classes so they can earn a certain amount of money, which is not good enough for the kind of quality of a teacher that they are. So,
and have you walked out before or gone on marches?
Yeah, so we walked out for right after the shooting in Parkland, Florida. So we did that. We also walked out on April 20th for gun violence as well. And but this is my first march for this, so yeah.
Great. Thanks for speaking with us.
Thank you.
Do you guys want to talk about what you're doing out here? Is it a pass?
Did any of you guys want to chat with us? We're live streaming for the news. Thank you so much for showing us. We don't bite, I promise. We are doing our job now. Oh, great. Okay,
so we're here in Phoenix. We're outside the state capitol. Hi.
Bear down. Represent. Bear down. Oh, sorry, bear down. There we go.
So we're here. We're live on BuzzFeed News right now. And if you could explain to us what's going on here.
This is a momentous occasion in the United States of America where we are showing exactly what democracy looks like. We are letting our governor and our legislature know that it is time to address education funding in Arizona. Since 2008, over $1 billion has been stripped from our students, and it's not fair.
And could I ask what it is that you teach?
I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade social studies, so civics is my passion.
And how long have you been a teacher?
This is my 18th year with a master's degree, and I make $44,400.
And how does your per pupil classroom funding compare with the rest of the country?
Our per pupil funding is 51st in the country. We're after including DC. So we have major thing we need is technology.
flags that are down there. The light rail was completely filled with people that were for this Red for Ed movement. People lining up as early as 8 o'clock in the morning. This is right outside of the Capitol lawn. You can see there are people that are sitting there. But more and more of these videos just continue to flood in the entire downtown corridor, starting in Chase Field. People here marching all the way to the Capitol carrying signs, some carrying umbrellas because it is a very hot day, all sporting their red shirts, and also those signs that you see there, hashtag Red for Ed. So as this movement continues through today, it is just incredible to see the size of this crowd. There are some aerial shots too that we have that are up above the thousands and thousands of marchers that have been out there from early this morning all the way until, including right now. You can see there's the front of the line. People really going to Snapchat, showing exactly what's around them. You see right there somebody showing that there are just hundreds, thousands of people who are involved in this entire movement as it makes its way. There's one of the aerial shots that I'm talking about. I mean, if you're anywhere in the downtown area, for the past couple of hours, all you had to do was look out from your office window and you can see all of these people. I remember when we first got the aerial shots, Mark and Tram, you were saying, we've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, it is truly unprecedented and almost chilling that this is actually happening in our very own backyard, because we have never seen anything like this. You know, earlier you were talking about how these movements, how they have really impacted the community, lawmakers. They're forcing people to act. I mean, we're talking the Me Too movement, gun violence. People have had enough.
People believe, rightly so, and I'm happy to see it, that they can enact change. Not just change, but big change in social mores in our country, and also in tangible things like education dollars. And I think it's an important time for America. I think Bram was right. It's not just here.
Yes.
It's a seismic shift in America. Well, you just heard Brian talking about people reacting to the governor's interview. He joined us in studio just a few minutes ago, and for those of you who weren't with us, we're going to replay that interview in its entirety right now. What do you feel? What are you seeing?
Well, I am here to help the teachers. I just came from the state capitol. I'm meeting with legislators and saying it's time to pass this pay raise. We've proposed a 20% pay increase for our teachers by 2020. We also have additional money for support staff, counselors, crossing guards, other folks that are inside these schools. We've got a growing economy here in the state of Arizona. This is an issue that needs to be addressed. We have confidence that we have the dollars available. So I want to answer the question for these teachers and get these pay raises passed.
Are you confident or pessimistic that something can be done to get the kids back in school by Monday?
I'm confident that something can be done, but this is a call to leadership and it is a call to action. That's why I've been dealing directly with legislative leadership, Republicans and Democrats. I don't think this is a partisan issue, and saying let's solve this issue, let's answer this for our teachers, for the people inside our schools, and for our citizens. I'm concerned when there is a teacher strike. These kids are out of school, parents are working, they have to bring a child with them or find daycare, and many of these kids eat breakfast and lunch at school as well, so that's top of mind for me.
Yeah, and I mentioned the term collateral damage in all of this, and ultimately I think everyone's intentions are good. The teachers' intentions are good, but they deserve more pay. Your intentions are good, but you need the approval of the legislature in a sustainable manner so that the teachers can get the money that you want to get them.
Yes, absolutely. The teachers have earned this pay raise. We are getting good results inside of our schools. Our kids are leading the nation in math and reading. So I know people like to talk about funding statistics, and we do need to address those. But in terms of a child being able to have access
that they are going to go along with his plan, because right now that's where we're at. We don't have the mass support in the legislature for that proposal that the governor has put out, and we're going to have to wait and see if that changes.
Speaking of Governor Doug Ducey, have we heard from him today at all? Has he taken to social media? Anything?
Oh, if you follow along on Twitter, he has been tweeting this morning, saying that, you know, obviously, let's just face it, you have to be under a rock in Phoenix to not know that this march is going on. So he is well aware of the march that's going on right outside, you know, his, for lack of a better term, front door. And he has saying he's sticking to his proposal, the 20% by 2020, as well as the funding for the districts for other support staff and employees and textbooks and what have you. So he's sticking by that, and he's saying he's meeting with lawmakers all day to try and get them on board with his plan as well. Because like I said, when he came out with that proposal, a lot of people, or at least this is what I heard on social media, some criticism of this movement. A lot of people said, well, the governor gave you what you want. Why are you still walking out? You know, if you follow along with politics, and I've been covering politics for about 5 years, both here and in Florida, the deal is that a proposal is just a proposal. Pen has to hit paper and a bill has to be signed, and that's what a lot of these people are looking for now. I think they're happy that we got to the point of a proposal from the governor, but they're still worried about where is this funding coming from. He's saying we have a booming economy, and you can't really argue with him. I mean, the economy in Arizona is growing and it is getting stronger, but they're worried about what if that doesn't last forever? What about the funding in the future? So all of these things, while they sound, you know, complicated, and to some people maybe they sound boring and they just want the governor to get it done, those are all things that go into this political process. And ultimately, he has the power to veto whatever the legislature puts out, but the legislature has the power to give him something that might not be his plan too. So that's the political ping pong that we're playing right now. It's up to the legislature to make his plan happen or give another plan, and then it'll be up to these teachers on whether or not they want to accept that.
Matt, we're hearing the governor say now, you know, I'm going to stick to my 20 by 2020 plan. But when this movement first started weeks ago, didn't he also say then that he wasn't going to budge at all for a raise? And obviously he did. So.
Well, and that's the beauty of politics, right? Nobody budges until they do. And, you know, I think a lot of people, if you talk to a lot of people on the ground like we did, let's say the teachers, let's say Red for Ed never happened. The teachers firmly believe that if they did nothing, there would have been no plan like this. So they you know, they have, in their minds, they have at least made some change happen. What ends up ultimately happening, though, now that's the real trick, because as much as this isn't the answer I want to give, it's a wait and see, because we don't have the answers until, again, our lawmakers, our elected officials, until they come out with a plan. We don't have the answers to that yet, and then again, it will eventually be up to these teachers on how long they want to continue this walkout, if they want to make that deal with the governor, if they want to return to the classroom. It's all wait and see at this point.
All right, Matt, thank you very much for that live report. One of the beauties of News Now is that our viewers do understand that it's live, it's unedited, so we may be popping in and out of your shot as long as you're out there with marchers, but really appreciate it. Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play yesterday's interview with Doug Ducey.
Can you tell me why you're not negotiating directly with the AEA, the Red for Ed people, why you're not talking to teachers directly right now?
Well, we are, well, first, because I'm talking to you, so I can't talk to you and teachers at the same time, but we are talking directly with teachers, and we're going to continue to talk directly with teachers, but the time now is to talk with the decision makers on the budget. We understand what the desires are here. It's a teacher pay increase, it's more money for our schools, it's sustainable, it's dollars that can go to support staff, so we're putting this forward with legislative leadership. Republicans Republicans and Democrats. We want to get this passed so we can say this commitment, this proposal has passed, and these dollars will begin to flow in the fall.
What about Noah Campbell's proposal for that penny a dollar sales tax for 3 years?
There's different ideas that are going on in the legislature, so I always let the legislature do their job. We're going to move forward our 20 for 20 plan. This is 20% by the year 2020. But when people are talking about raising taxes right now, first I want to understand the proposal, but I'm also asking, why would we raise taxes right now when our economy is booming? People are moving to our state. We're one of the top 5 states in the nation in which to do business, and we can propose this amount of significant hundreds of millions of dollars going forward to our teachers because our tax coffers are growing.
Some of the legislators in your own party, like Senator Kavanaugh, think your projections are too rosy. They're not buying it.
Well, we're working with Senator Kavanaugh on that to understand that our projections are actually very reasonable. If you remember back in 2015 when we balanced our budget for the first time in a long time and we sent the legislature off to do their other jobs, the projections came in much better. Our economy was seen as growing. People were saying, you ought to come back and spend that money. We said, no, we want to be responsible. We want to see if we really do have a true economic boom and going in the right direction. Today, we're one of the fastest growing states in the nation. We have available dollars. The need is for our teachers. These people do wonderful work. We want to get the dollars to the teachers' paychecks, and we also want support staff to have availability to these raises as well.
How about restoring that $1 billion that was cut after 2008? That's what the teachers keep coming back to. They say you're not talking about that.
Well, the best way to restore funding that was cut in the past is to add additional dollars, and that's what we're doing with these teacher pay raises. This is what we did since 2015, adding $1.7 billion additional dollars, passing Prop 123, extending Prop 301, and today we're talking about a 20% pay increase.
How about more money for the support staff of these schools? It's the counselors, the psychologists, the people who work at this.
Absolutely, absolutely. The counselors, the crossing guards, the psychologists, there are dollars in this budget, and there were dollars in the budget originally for this, $100 million in this year, and a commitment of $371 million over the next 5 years.
The teachers say that the 2020 thing assumes that you'll be reelected, and that if you're not, is that what
well, this is up to the people. I'm doing everything in my power.
See, it's not locked in. They're saying that 20% is not locked in.
The budget I will sign when it comes to my desk is a 3-year budget. That's the commitment to these teachers. If a governor in the future wants to undo that, that's up to that governor. This governor has a commitment to our teachers.
Why are you not negotiating directly with Joe Thomas?
I'm working with teachers and superintendents in our legislature.
Which teachers are you working with? Because the union is telling me that you're not talking to them. You're talking to superintendents and other stakeholders, but not them. They're the ones who might walk off the job.
Well, we're working directly with teachers and superintendents. The superintendents make these decisions, and those are the ones we're going to continue to work with, and we'll work with legislative leadership of both parties as well.
Are you actually negotiating face-to-face with union leadership on this?
I'm working with teachers. I'm working with districts.
Which teachers?
Well, I'm not going to talk to you about which teachers I'm dealing with here. We post plenty of stuff on social media. The decision now is to get the dollars to the teachers. The next step is to work through the budgetary process to get those dollars to the teachers and all of our teachers.
Now, is there anything you want to say that I haven't asked you? This is sort of an open mic for you.
Well, I just want to say that I value what these teachers do. I'm committed to getting them this 20% raise. We want to get them this raise, and then we want our teachers to do what they do best, is to be in the classroom and do what they do for our students in terms of serving them. My concern is for the kids. I always start out with the kids in the classroom, their parents who often are both working. Many of these kids get their meals at our schools, sometimes breakfast and lunch. So we've got some time left in the school year. We've got graduations coming up. The teacher pay raise is a real issue. We're going to solve it in addition to getting more money into our K-12 education system for support staff. I'm going to head to the state capitol right now and work with legislators to get this done.
Feet mark, we're seeing it, and what I mean by 6,000 feet is cumulus clouds typically like to form at that 6,000 foot mark. But now what we're seeing is this thing is lying a little more on the flatter side. We're starting to see some winds literally in this level right here, kind of coming in off the lake and making it push to the south and east. And once it gets a little further over land, it then rises straight northward. where it hits the clouds, which are moving in a southeasterly direction. So you can kind of see the overall flow in which the direction this is going. So again, it's this plume of smoke that is the biggest concern at this time, and we've been watching it closely because, you know, you can see it even though at the surface it is going to the south and west, but zooming in a little bit, I mean, you can really tell just looping this over the last 2 hours, the thing is it hasn't really moved a whole lot, and it's just really in between Highway 35 and Highway 53. And again, we've been able to zoom in to see exactly some of the impact points of where this is actually going. You know, South County Highway 11, South County Highway B, and then, you know, the majority of it within that that square between County Highway Z, County Highway C, and then on either side you can see County Highway K and A. So again, near the Sunnyside area and the South Range. So that thing continues to slide east. Now, I know we've showed this earlier, but I want to show it again because things were pretty quiet until around 12:12, and that's when that first explosion occurred. And you can see that it really took off from there then on. And, you know, over the last 2 hours, you could see once we hit that mark, it has been really vertical, as I said, and now it's just slowly beginning to slide more east-southeast, southwest I meant, within the last hour, and then billowing up toward the clouds at about 6,000 feet, moving to the southeast. Now, looking at this thing, we have a 10 to 20 mile per hour wind. This is using our harbor cam, and you can see looking over the harbor at the surface in the direction that this is going, the clouds up top moving in the other direction. We're at a 10 to 20 mile per hour wind, but we've been gusting up to 21, 25 miles per hour, and just to our west, they're already gusting up to 25, 30 miles per hour. So that's why I mentioned earlier that between that 3 and 4 o'clock time frame, the winds would actually be increasing a little bit, and now we're starting to see it lie a little bit further to the south west and lying a little more flatter on the ground, Renee.
All right, thank you, Justin, for that. One quick thing before we go to Ryan, we're going to talk about we talk about evacuations a lot, and people are starting to offer their homes and their businesses and their churches. So, for example, Anchor Point Community Church in Duluth on Colorado Street in the Lakeside neighborhood is opening its doors today and tonight for evacuees. So that's Anchor Point Community Church on Colorado Street. And I'm sure we'll get more of these as it comes. But again, you're encouraged also to go to Four Corners Elementary School in Superior, and the Yellow Jacket Union at UWS if you have nowhere to go. And of course, traffic is really kind of backed up everywhere, so just take your time and try to be patient. Everybody is pretty much in this together. And now we'll go to Ryan Genty, who is at Essentia Health St. Mary's Hospital here in Duluth.
You're live here. You're live, Ryan.
All right, everybody. I'm at Essentia St. Mary's here in Duluth. As you see here, the garage is just open. And I believe this is in anticipation for the patient coming in from the Essentia St. Mary's in Superior. We're told that is what is going to be happening here. So we're just continuing to monitor that situation here. As of right now, there were 5 patients over there at Essentia Superior that we believe are coming there after the hospital was evacuated. Here, safety precautions. You see some gold cross right now. Not sure at this point whether that is related to the incident or not. We have Cloquet Area Fire District is what that ambulance is. So they may have brought in additional personnel here. We heard some sirens earlier. That was what, not sure if we jumped the gun a little bit here, but we heard regarding the emergency personnel coming from Superior here. So I'm not sure whether they're coming yet, but stay with us here, and we will obviously be sure to bring you these updates. We have team coverage from this incident as well. We have some of our reporters in Superior, obviously in the studio right now. And then at a couple different hospitals here as well. And on that note with the hospitals, we did tell you earlier that at St. Luke's, there was one patient who is now in fair condition. Now, what this means is that but maybe
crews in Duluth. St. Mary's Superior has not been evacuated, deputy.
All right, so Ryan's voice is breaking up a little bit, but he was standing outside of Essential Health St. Mary's in Duluth, where he thought that some patients were being brought in at that moment. Again, Essential Health St. Mary's Superior was evacuated as a precaution, and 5 patients from the initial explosion were brought there with non-life-threatening injuries, and then 5 were brought to Essential Health Duluth. 1 with serious blast injuries, 4 non-life-threatening, and 1 patient remains at St. Luke's in fair condition. So hopefully those numbers do not go up anymore. Initially there was a higher number, and let's hope we stay at 11 now that the fire has really progressed from the initial incident at 10 o'clock this morning when there was an explosion and fire. At one point, the fire officials thought they had it contained and put out, and then things grew progressively worse, and now that smoke just billows, and of course people are being asked to evacuate a 3-mile radius around the entire refinery, which is on the east end. 10 miles south, of course, you're being asked to. And so many people, you know, if you don't know where to go, it's understandable. It's kind of a confusing, a little bit scary time, but people are starting to offer their homes, churches, schools. There will be places for people. No one wants anyone to be left out. Thankfully, we're not in the middle of a snowstorm or something, because that would be much worse. But already people with big hearts, and we are kind of a big-hearted community, are already brainstorming across the bridge. How can we help Superior? Other communities in Wisconsin are probably like, how can we help? You know, there are ambulances and emergency crews from all over our region who know that this is the time that everyone trains for and no one hopes happens, but it's actually happening. So there's really no way to stop. You have to respond, and so there's so many people coming in from around the region offering their help. Again, the hospital in Superior has been evacuated, which, you know, they practice those things too. You know, every once in a while we'll get an email from the hospitals or other institutions, and they say, all right, just so you know, we're doing this drill, you know, whether it's, you know, this emergency A or emergency B, they practice for these things. And so they know what to do when they have to take patients. You know, and a good thing, it's a precaution. At least it's not like, you know, there was an explosion there. Thankfully not. It's just that they're doing it as a precaution, and they can do it in an orderly fashion and bring those patients over here to Duluth. And, you know, some people in Superior, even if you're not in the evacuation zones, the 10 miles, the 3 miles, you might just want to say, hey, I just want to be away from this, which is understandable because it is very scary, and do it in an orderly fashion. A lot of traffic right now. There might be some frustration on the roads, but you know, I think people are trying to be as patient as they can. I mean, what else can you do? Everybody is in the same boat. The whole city knows that this is going on, and trying to keep calm. The kids seem like they were acting calm in that big parking lot there, and Bailey is joining me out now here on the set. And I mean, you know, when you wake up in the morning, you don't think, wow, this is what's going to happen. But
no, of course not. None of us think that. We all, you know, have a normal plan for our day and expect it to go as planned. And something like this happens, and I think, you know, we saw it in the windstorm, and we've seen it in these other bigger events for our community, that people jump in and help where needed. I know a representative of the Red Cross went down to Super One. Super One made up a bunch of sandwiches and provided those for some of the emergency workers that are out there at the scene and have been all day and all morning. So, you know, it's those little things. And, you know, we have Anchor Point Church that is already planned on opening up for the evening for people to come there. So the community, this community does step in when these things happen. And unfortunately, we have another situation where that is happening. And, you know, we're going to stay on the air for most of the afternoon. I think we're planning on staying on because, you know, it's not contained. We don't have much new information from fire officials right now, but we want to give you as many updates as we can, tell you where you can go, where you can't go, you know, where to stay away from, and all of that information that is very fluid in situations like this.
And a lot of the changes that are happening can be posted on social media and are sent in through Twitter and Facebook. And and email. So it's really nice to have those immediate updates, and we're doing everything we can to keep the website updated and to keep you updated. But it is changing like this, and I know the mayors, they're trying to organize a press conference because they know everyone is like, what is going on and what should we do, where should we go, and so we're working really hard. I mean, I can't imagine what the stress level must be when you're trying to contain this kind of situation, but they're professionals, they know what to do, and we put our trust in them because that's their job. And so,
and we saw the Superior Police Department post that these are trained professionals executing a prepared action plan for a situation like this. You know, this was not altogether unexpected. Of course, they didn't think it was going to happen at any point, but they did have a plan in place for it. And I know our crews are trying to get to the press conference there that Mayor Payne and some of the Douglas County officials are having. But of course, traffic is now a situation for everyone trying to leave and pick up children and all of that in Superior. So we are continuing to monitor. You can still see that large plume of smoke there, and you can still go pick up children from school that were bused over to the Amsoil Center. I saw some photos of teachers and people sort of indicating which schools that all the students were gathered in groups outside so that parents can just, see the sign, okay, Cooper, and then head to that area to get their students, of course.
And we just got a reminder, when you're asked to evacuate, obviously you're kind of feeling a little bit stressed, but you should remember to try to bring in really important things like your medications. Obviously this is a time not to be feeling not your best, or if you have a chronic condition, who knows how long